Welcome to the Mike Litton Experience Podcast. Mike has over 31 years experience in real estate, finance, and investing. He's passionate about being a father, a teacher, a realtor, an investor, and a leader. Everyone has a story, and our passion is to help them tell it. And now, introducing the host of the Mike Litton Experience, Mike Litton.
So what can you expect from the Mike Litton Experience? You can expect stories that will inspire, motivate, advice that will sharpen your focus, and expert information on real estate, finance, and market conditions. Have the time to be able to give back. And when they look up in the stands, you're there.
Ah, that's amazing. And that's the goal. So one day I'm gonna have to come back to you to see, how you did it. So make sure, I'm headed up on the right path.
Oh, I'm happy to share that with you in any way I possibly can. I had a phone conversation the other day with somebody about a property that was available for rent for a client of mine that I was helping to find a place. And I got on the phone with him, and we were on the phone for over an hour. And it turns out he's the chief of staff at one of the biggest hospitals in San Diego County. And he was asking me about parenting for over an hour, Manny.
Wow.
And what he was asking, the reason he was asking me was he has an 11, a 13, and a 15-year-old at home. And I have a 25 and 23-year-old, right? And he said, so what did you say when they did this? What did you say when they did this? What did you, right? And so I told him, I said, I didn't say anything. I just asked them. And he said, really? So you raised your children using the Socratic method? I said, absolutely. Absolutely. I never talked at my children. I always ask my children questions, right? And it was important to me that I was able to pull out of them what I already knew the conclusion needed to be, but I needed it to be their idea, right? One of the things I knew before I became a dad was I knew that my children were going to be headstrong. Some people call it bullheaded. And I'm sure they didn't get it from me. No, I'm joking, right? But I knew my children were going to be like me. And I knew that they were going to be somewhat stubborn, okay? And so one of the ways that you deal, and you know this, one of the ways you deal with stubborn people is you ask them questions and you help them come to the conclusion so that it's their idea of what needs to be done, whatever the right thing is to do, okay? So, so it was pretty cool.
No,
So,
I love that.
Yeah,
And
so go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, and that's what we train every day. Like, it's mind blowing how a lot of even experienced people in real estate, and I think that was a big part of my success, is asking questions. My favorite thing is questions. And I feel like too, like the quality, Tony Robbins said it best, the quality of your life is directly correlated with the quality of the questions you ask yourself.
Correct.
So if you're not where you want to be, you just haven't asked yourself the right questions. And yeah, I have so many questions, and that question leads to, okay, well, if I don't have the answer, where can I go find that answer? A lot of times it's books, or it's people who are already where you're at, or already have the family. So I love that. I'm a big believer in questions, and I'm constantly training our sales team to ask more questions. And then when they reveal the information, ask more questions to really get deeper, because a lot of what's surface level isn't the truth. It's a couple more questions underneath that. So
yeah, that's exactly what it is. And you have to care enough to ask, right? So if you're in sales, if you're in anything where you're trying to help people, you have to care enough to ask the questions that, let's be honest, can lead you somewhere somewhat uncomfortable. There could be pain there, right? But you got to care enough to ask. And if you care enough to ask, you'll develop a deeper relationship with them than anybody else out there, and they'll only deal with you because of that. It's amazing how it works.
Right.
It literally eliminates your competition. Do you mind if I share something with you?
Please, yeah.
So a good buddy of mine is an investor, and I was sitting with him one day, and we were talking about buying a piece of land in Del Mar that he was going to build 6 houses on. And it was already mapped. It was already ready to go. The builder had gone bankrupt, and we were going to be buying it out of foreclosure. And so I was sitting with him at a restaurant in UTC, and we were having breakfast and we were talking, and he just checked out. Like you ever done that? Like have you ever sat with somebody and then they just leave you mentally?
Yeah.
And he left me. And so I stopped what I was saying mid-sentence, and I just said, "What's up?" And he goes, "I'm worried." And I said, "Well, what are you worried about?" He goes, "Well, we have a baby boy." And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Well, he's getting ready to turn 1." I said, "Okay." And I said, "What are you worried about?" He goes, "Well, he hasn't said anything for over 2 months, Mike." And I said, "No, that's not possible. That's not even possible." Because when we would get on the phone, he and I, on his speakerphone in his truck, his son would be in the back and he'd be talking baby talk. He wanted to be in the conversation. So I would talk to him through the speakerphone and I'd ask him questions, right? And he'd be back there trying to answer my questions. Nobody could understand a thing he was saying, including him.
Right.
It was all baby talk, right? And so I'm like, that same kid, he goes, I said, "Okay, well, let me ask you a question. What does he do when he wants something?" He said, he points and he grunts. And I said, "Well, I used to do that when I was a kid. So make him tell you what it is that he wants before you get it for him. And by the way, this will help you when you have kids. When you have your first baby, they train you. Believe it or not, they train you. And if they even start to whimper, you're going to leap up and you're going to go grab whatever it is and you're going to get it for them. Because otherwise they start crying and they throw a fit. Okay. And what I told him was, I said, he's going to cry, talk with mama, make sure she's on the same page with you, but let him cry. Make him tell you what that is, okay, before you go get it for him. He's going to throw a fit, let him do it. The other thing is, when you go home at night, what do you do? He said, "Well, I go home and I pick him up and I give him a hug and a kiss and I tell him I love him." So, okay, what else? He goes, "Well, I talk to him." I said, "Okay, well, stop doing that." He said, "Which part?" I said, "Stop talking to him." And he goes, "Why?" And I said, "Because I want you to ask him questions. You go home, I don't want you to say a single thing to him. Don't tell him to do anything. Don't talk to him. Ask him questions. How was your day? Did you take care of mama? How were the birds? How did the dog do? What did you eat something? What was your favorite food today? How good was your lunch?" Ask him, ask him, ask him. Now, he cannot answer until he learns how to talk. But here's the thing. We come out of the womb, Manny, programmed to answer questions. If you don't think so, you get in front of a 2-year-old that's throwing a tantrum, walk up to them, get in their face and go, "What's wrong?" They will stop what they're doing. They'll forget that they were in a temper tantrum. They'll turn their head sideways and look at you like a dog that's heard a sound for the first time. And they completely forget you've completely interrupted their pattern, right?
Right.
Because when you ask them questions, even when they're a brand new born baby, they focus on you and they want to answer because they're literally programmed to answer. Okay. So he goes home and he does what I suggested. Okay. A couple days later, I called him. I said, "So what's happening?" He goes, "Well, we're not worried anymore." And I said, "That's great news. Why is that?" He goes, "We can't get him to shut up."
That's awesome.
He just needed, Manny, permission from his parents to talk. That's all he needed. He just needed them to ask him questions and pull it out of him. That's all he needed. They were literally considering putting him or having him tested for the autism spectrum. Okay. They were that worried about it.
Wow.
So the power of questions is a much greater power than most people realize. And when you're a parent, it is incredibly powerful because when your children mess up, they expect that you're going to yell at them, that you're going to spank them, you're whatever, right? You're going to do whatever to punish them. Okay. My sister and I grew up, we fought like cats and dogs. And I was not going to allow that to happen with my kids. I wasn't going to allow it to happen. So from the time that they understood English, I would tell them this: "Hey, let me ask you a question. What's your job?" And they would say, "Be nice." Is what you just did to your sister or to your brother an example of being nice? No. What should you do? Say sorry. What else? Not do it again? Exactly. Right. We did that same script, those same exact questions for the entire time they were growing up. Okay. Fast forward to Madison's 16, Michael's 17. Michael's almost 18 at this point. They get into a squabble. We're in a 3,000 square foot house in Escondido, and they're up in the upstairs. I hear it. I'm like, okay, you two down here right now with me. They come down, they sit down, same exact script. They go their separate ways. A couple days later, Madison's working on getting her permit. And so I'm driving with her so she can get her hours in and her practice in. And she said, Dad, and I said, yeah. She goes, remember the other day when we got into a squabble and you brought us downstairs? And yeah. She goes, we'd already solved it, Dad. That taught me, Manny, that my approach worked. They figured out how to solve it, how to resolve conflict between themselves, right? We were able to teach them to do that by using that Socratic method.
I love that.
So,
yeah, questions are powerful. We could do a whole like sales training on that too. We could do a whole podcast on questions.
Oh, absolutely could.
Yeah.
Absolutely
I love
could.
it.
So you started Got Fixers, and you've been there 7 months, right? Super proud of you, by the way.
Thank you.
So what's your favorite thing about owning your own company and buying property and fixing it up and reselling it?
I think the biggest thing now, honestly, is the team. That's my favorite thing, because now we have people with experience and people with no experience, and just being able to create like an ecosystem to help elevate them. And now, like, one of my favorite books is Sales Management Simplified. And in that book, one of the premises, like, I can no longer be the hero. I need to make new heroes out of the new team, the new acquisitions people. And, I can't be out there closing every deal, but how do I multiply myself and create new heroes within this industry? So I would say that's definitely my favorite part about starting the company and pouring into them. A lot of them want to buy their first, second investment property, just like I did just over a year ago. And my biggest dream would be able to help them be successful in acquisitions, close more deals, get them paid so they can buy their first, second investment property, because it was life-changing for me. And I've already seen all the benefits of owning real estate. So the team first, I love our culture, the camaraderie, see them excited to come in. And, it's not easy though. Like, we've had lulls, right? People get close to deals and then they fall out, and it's heartbreaking, and you got to coach them through that. And, we've had a few people, not a few, we've had like, 2 people go, which is normal. I knew that was going to happen in the industry. And so, but for the most part, it's definitely, the culture, the team. And then about the fix and flip properties, for me, it's like, I enjoy seeing something that's like ugly, not well taken care of. And then just the transformation always blows my mind, every time we do these. We're doing fix and flips. It's just cool. Like, I never as a kid appreciated a home or interior design, but now that I'm much older, I understand the value and the importance of your environment and space. So when, you can change the layout of a house to make it more open concept and more feng shui and more flow and feel more like a safe haven, that's cool, because then I know that next family that's going to move in there, they're going to enjoy it. They're going to be able to create these family, make those legacies, build a better tomorrow. And also, I'm a big believer too. Like, we're bringing value to the San Diego community by, literally revitalizing one home at a time, one ugly home at a time. And I know there's pros and cons to that, but that's really cool. And then lastly too, I also just enjoyed the hunts. Like, when I was a caller, it's just exciting to, someone who's like says no to you, or they're yelling at you at the phone when you first start, and then by the end of it, they're apologizing. Oh, I'm so sorry, I was yelling at you in the beginning. I just get all these calls all the time. And then we help them sell their home. So it's just like, I love that part of it, and I just love seeing the growth, the momentum, and then ultimately just growing with other people like Mark and Paul, us all working together to build this is really cool because I'm in charge of the sales. Paul is in charge of all operations, and Mark is like the design and the finances, and then obviously his legacy and his strong foundation with all his other companies. So it's just really cool to be able to learn so much from them, as well. So I actually love. I know that wasn't a short answer, but I actually, as I say that, I'm like, wow, I actually kind of love all of it.
Yeah, well, it's cool. So what you're doing is you're breathing life into something that needs it, right? You're also breathing life into neighborhoods. So years ago, we did a project in Escondido that was 10 duplex units in a home for a wounded veteran with Habitat for Humanity San Diego.
Wow.
And it all started with them being on my radio show. The CEO and the director of communications, they were on my show. And a couple of weeks after we interviewed them on the show, they called me up and they said, hey, we got this new property that's just over an acre. It's in Escondido and it's in this neighborhood. And it happened to be in a neighborhood in Escondido that if you look up blight in the dictionary, there was a picture of this neighborhood. I mean, it's really that bad. There was a house right across the street on the same street, right across the street from this project that I had sold for JP Morgan Chase. And we called it the Roach House because every time you open the door, 50 roaches went running all over the place. And the person who bought it was an investor. They put 3 windows in that were missing when we closed escrow and put a family in there. It was really bad. And so this whole area was that way though. I mean, it was just bad. And so they called me up and they said, hey, we just got this and we're super excited about it. We have a problem. And I said, what's the problem? And they said, well, we don't have the funds and the city doesn't have the funds to clear it. It's been used for years and years and years as a junkyard. People have dumped all kinds of stuff out there. There were mattresses out there. There were all kinds of things, bricks, blocks, and pieces of pieces of masonry, right? Concrete, that kind of thing, broken up out there. And they needed that area cleared. The only way to do it was to do it by hand. You couldn't do it with a machine, right? So me and 25 of my agents from my Keller Williams office took a day and we spent all day clearing this thing. We filled 2 industrial dumpsters full of just debris, just junk, okay? That people had thrown out there. Got it cleared. And 3 weeks after we got it cleared, they called me up and they said, we lost our funding. We have to scuttle the project. And I said, well, you can't. And they said, well, we have to. And I said, but you can't. And they said, but we have to. And I said, but you can't. This area is entirely too bad for you to not do this project. How much do you need? And they said, we need 2.3 million. And I said, well, I don't have 2.3 million. But I know a number of people in Escondido that love Escondido, and they have access to that kind of money. And I will set up the presentations. If you'll hold on to it, I will set up the presentations and I will do them myself. All you have to do is come and show up and just sit there and listen. And if I miss something, fill in the blank, right? So we do our very first presentation, and they agreed, by the way. So we do our very first presentation to one of the most powerful people in the nation, let alone Escondido.
Wow.
And we sat there and we did this. They started the presentation and I took over because they weren't getting it right. I took over. And at the end of it, we were walking out. As we were walking out, this powerful man that we put this together with, put his arm around the CEO of Habitat for Humanity San Diego. And he said, I have a bit of advice for you. And she said, what's that? And he said, let him do all the presentations. Everything you do from now on, let him do all the talking. So we did a number of presentations. We were able to raise the 2.3 million and we dedicated 10 duplex units in a home for a wounded veteran, brand new, in December of 2015.
Wow.
A very interesting thing happened. That house across the street got repainted. It got remodeled. It got fixed up, and the same tenants that were living there when it was awful, when it was practically squalor, were now living in a house that was almost brand new. Okay. And the houses down the street and around the project, they all started looking better. They all started getting approved. I'm telling you, I'm telling you from experience, there's a ripple effect to what you're doing for a living. You're fixing up a house in a neighborhood, and then the other owners are starting to mow their lawns. They're starting to paint their houses. They're starting to pick things up. It just is human nature. Okay. You've shown pride for them, and now they assume that pride and they run with it. It's a big, big deal, Manny. It's a bigger deal than you can possibly imagine. Plus, the people that you're helping. Okay. I've been able to buy properties for one of your competitors for a number of years. I bought hundreds of them. And one of the things that I was able to do was I was able to establish relationships with these sellers. And oftentimes they're the heirs, that kind of thing. But I would establish relationships with these sellers. And after we were done remodeling it, the first people we brought in were the sellers. Okay. And we would bring them in and they couldn't even talk. They were crying so hard. And they would walk through and they'd go, you know, Mike, if my dad had the money and had the time, he would have taken that wall out. If my dad had had the money, he would have done this. He would have put these countertops in. He would have put these appliances in. You cannot imagine how much it means to them. Okay. What you're doing is important. It's important for the neighborhood, but it's also important for the people that end up selling to you. Okay.
I love that. That's a good point. That's really cool that you did that too. Yeah. I love that.
Cool. And one of the things we also would do is we'd go to the neighbors that we knew were friends of the seller, and we would allow them in first before anybody else from the general public got a chance to see. We'd let them in first. And it was a really cool deal. We called it a private open house, right? And we'd bring them in and it was just a private showing, and we wouldn't allow anybody else in, just them.
Love that.
It was super cool, man.
I like that. That's a great idea.
So I've told you that I'm super proud of you, and I am. Is there anything else you'd like to cover before we wrap up?
Oh gosh. I think the biggest thing is, one thing that makes us a little bit different is coming from the nonprofit world, coming into the real estate industry. It was kind of a culture shock, where I'm very fortunate that I have been able to meet a lot of selfless people in the real estate industry, but there are a lot of more of not selfless people in the real estate industry. And, it was just a culture shock, to each their own. But I think like one thing that we pride ourselves on, and one thing I love, why we chose to partner with Mark too, why we align with him is, we just care about the people. People first. We care about the people that we on our team. We care about the agents that we partner with, and we care about their clients. We care about our clients, and we care about the quality of the product we put out there. So like overall, like the emphasis is that we care. So, if agents, if you're listening to this and, you just feel like you're a number or people aren't caring about you or your clients or your reputation, that's one thing that we pride ourselves on. And so, if you're looking for an investor that's going to go a little bit more above and beyond and help you get more properties through the finish line, don't hesitate to reach out. But I would say that's probably like the biggest thing I would want to talk about is just super important to us is just that level of care that we want to communicate to anybody that we engage with.
Yeah. And I know you well enough to know that's genuine. And I really am excited for you. I'm excited to see how you guys grow, and I'm excited to see how Got Fixers takes off. And I'm super proud of you. Like I said, couldn't be more proud of you.
Thank you, Mike.
Really appreciate you coming on the Mike Litton Experience and sharing your story. I know for a fact that you're going to inspire and motivate some people. You've already inspired and motivated me.
And vice versa, you inspired and motivated me. Like, I hope that we can continue this conversation even outside the podcast, but thank you so much for having me. This was incredible. And what you're doing is so influential, and I just appreciate that. Yeah, you make time for this to extract and inspire and aspire, many people and all your listeners. So thank you.
Thank you, buddy. I appreciate you. Take care. Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed another episode of the Mike Litton Experience. If you did, do us a favor, smash that subscribe button, tell your friends, family, and coworkers about our program, and wherever you get your podcasts, please leave us a rating. It helps us to connect with quality people just like you.
And that's a wrap. Another episode of the Mike Litton Experience in the books. Reach out to Mike on Instagram at Litton Realty. Want to meet with Mike? Check out calendly.com/Rio760.